Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. My name is Chris Enriquez. I work at Revolver Magazine, The Hard Times, and Inked Magazine. And I've been doing this show for a few months, and you guys are great for supporting. I also play drums in the band Spotlights at Spotlights Music. If you want to follow me, I'm at Chris Enriquez Drums, and you can watch all the episodes that you guys, if you missed any episodes, you want to watch reruns, you can go to my YouTube channel by looking up Christopher Enriquez, or you could go on the Revolver Magazine YouTube channel, and there's a bunch of episodes up there too. And shout out to the owners of St. Vitus, Mr. David Castillo. What's up, baby? Cheers to you, you beautiful man. Also a co-host on the show. He'll be here tomorrow with, remind me, Dave, let me pull it up. Who do we have on the show tomorrow? Tomorrow we have Void Vision, and and then and also shout out to Artie Shepard, who usually does Wednesdays, so we had to skip last night. But yeah, all of the past episodes are on YouTube or on here. And before we get my guest on, I just want to talk about him a little bit. I see he's ready to go. Aaron Harris, you hear ISIS, the band, playing in the background. I saw ISIS, the band, in the late 90s in Long Island, where I was from, at a hardcore show at a place called Deja One. I can't remember who's on the bill, but it was probably like some Hydra Head bands at the time, you know, a lot of noisy bands from Boston and that area. And they stuck out to me just simply because they were not a hardcore band. Definitely like more in the Neurosis realm, which at the time, you know, everybody in the 90s was playing either old school hardcore or some kind of metalcore, and so it kind of stuck out. And now I later on saw them open for the Melvins, and God, fucking unbelievable band, and it just still holds up to this day. It's hard to find bands that you really say that about, and their music is timeless. They put out amazing records: Oceanic, Panopticon, Celestial, so many more. And he also plays drums in the band Palms. And lastly, he does some other interesting stuff that we'll talk about, licensing music, you know, things I'll let him explain. But looks like he's ready, and so I'm going to get him on the screen. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the question mark box. I'll get to them at some point. And have fun with the comments. I'll try to get to those too at some point as well. All right, let's wait for the internet to do its thing, and we'll be getting Aaron, drummer extraordinaire, on the screen. Looks like he's popping up right now. Hey Aaron, how you doing?
Hey, I
You
got
look like you look like you're in a more professional situation than I am.
What's up, man?
Nothing much, man. Just chilling out. You know, I get excited to do this because, you know, when I started the show, I was worried about not having anything to do every night, and I love talking to people. So,
Yeah,
so it's just a great thing to not only get to do that with my favorite artists, but also have an audience and people interacting. So yeah, I'm stoked, man. What's going on with you?
it's really cool that you do this. It's I'm sure it's a lot of work to like find the guests and then research them and get some questions together and schedule the time and commit your own time. And so it's cool that you do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, pandemic life, you know.
Yeah,
You'll do it. At least I live alone, so it's like I'm used to going to shows, and obviously, like with what I do for a living, it's like I'm very much out there every night doing stuff. So this is a great way
yeah.
to get that out of my system, but entertain people at the same time.
You seem like a very social person.
I guess you could say so. You know, I'm definitely not the quiet guy in the band. That's for sure. What about you? As far as the role that you played in your band, were you more on the quiet side, or were you more of the outgoing?
I think we were all kind of on the quiet side, I think we all kind of shied away from much social interaction, but yeah, I always hated doing interviews and shit like that. I I just felt like I just sat there and just kind of stared and let other people answer questions. So I was kind of like, what's the point? I don't really need to do this. So I
Yeah, no, I feel you. Hey, do you mind if I just move this light a little bit because I feel like I'm a little dark. I just want to get some
Yeah,
better lighting.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but thank you so much for doing this. And I know you just mentioned that you were not a big interview guy, so I'm honored. That helped a little bit, I guess. I'm honored that you decided to do this with me. And
Yeah.
how have you been managing to get through the pandemic so far?
Um, Fine. I mean, it's, I mean, outside of the obvious, like, bad situation that everyone's in and the hard times people are, hit with and all the, all the negative stuff, like, honestly, man, life isn't too different for me. I have a studio at home and you know, I, most of my time is spent at home, honestly. So it's,
Right.
but even that said, I feel like, I'm very much a homebody and I don't mind that life. And like I said, I work from home, but also it's even starting to get to me, man. I miss my friends and I miss going out
Yeah.
in the world. And, I have a daughter now, so there's lots of stuff we want to show her that we can't really show her. And, lots of restaurants I miss and coffee shops and bars and, my favorite places and foods and things to do. But, you know, it'd be nice if everybody could just buckle down and get through this instead of, you know, I just feel like we keep getting derailed and
Yeah.
people,
No, absolutely.
people, as soon as the nice weather hit, everybody started going out. And I live on the east side of LA in a area called Mount Washington.
Hmm.
And when me and my wife go into town, like on the weekends, it's crazy to just see the difference. Like there's so many people just out, like no mask, just,
Right.
just walking around like there's nothing,
Right.
you
Nothing
know,
happened. Yeah.
nothing happening. Yeah. So that's
Well,
frustrating.
LA seems to be like that's where you are, right? In LA.
Yep. Yep.
I knew that because we obviously hung out there, but I wasn't sure if anything changed. Los Angeles, not to get on it too much, seems to be a little behind compared to at least where we were at in New York because it was way worse here. So,
Yeah.
you know, our numbers went down. But when I see what's going on with people, I just have conversation. I talk to a lot of people in LA because of the music industry stuff, and they tell me things sometimes, just like little stories of like the socializing. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you guys are very different from what the hell is going on around here. Like, I don't know any. I stayed in my house for 3 months. I went
Yeah.
out 4 times to go to the store, but then I stopped. Like, I only left my house 4 times. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember reading, seeing on the news and what you guys are going through. It was crazy, man. Like, and for a little bit, I felt proud of LA. Like we were, when this started, we were doing really well and we had it under control and I was proud of Los Angeles, but then it just like it's like I said, as soon as this good weather hit, everybody just it
Yeah.
just went it just went to shit.
They're acting like it's not good weather all the time over there anyway.
Yeah.
But how did it affect your work schedule? Because I mean, you maybe you could talk about it a little bit. Obviously, we all know you from playing drums in ISIS and Palms, but what you do now is a mixture of what licensing for like music for commercial use.
I write music for mostly for movie trailers, but for movies, television, advertising, video games, uh, you name it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just here in my studio writing every day. The work's still coming in, and it's some weeks are slow, some are busy, but it's not like it was. That's for sure. Production slowed way down. But I feel like things are starting to happen again, and it's starting to feel like, good and
Good.
things are picking up, but it's just so hard to tell. Like you could have a really great week and feel like, oh man, things are picking up. This feels awesome. And then the next week it could be scary dead, It's just a really weird time.
I want to talk about the industry you're in now in a little bit because I have so many questions about it. But the way I kind of do it, if I ever look like I'm not paying attention, which I realize is because I have questions over here. I was watching my interview with Dale the other day and had people tell me, like, it looks like you're not paying attention to him. I'm like, no, I am. I'm just looking at my questions.
No, no, of course. Yeah, do your thing.
But so I like to sort of tell people's life story as much as we can throughout the hour, and kind of go back in time, if that's cool with you.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up exactly?
I grew up in a town in Maine called Bath.
Okay.
Like take a bath.
Okay. That you must have had to explain that a lot.
Yeah, just a very small town, like coastal Maine. Population's only a few thousand people. I lived there until I was 18, and then I moved to Boston, and that's where I got into the music world and met the ISIS guys. And I moved to Boston right out of high school. I wanted to pursue music. I at the time thought, I'll just take a year off from going to college. At least that's what I told my parents. But I honestly never had any any ambitions of going to college. Like I just really was interested in playing music, and so I kind of put my eggs in one basket, and yeah, luckily I met the guys in ISIS, and it we all had a similar vision for what we wanted to do musically, and got along with those guys really well. And I feel like that's a big part of starting a band. That's like so like such a chance, right? Like finding you got to find people that you can play with, that have a schedule that will work with you, that can want to play a style of music that you want to play, that you get along with, that are on board to put in the work to be in a band. Like there's a lot of chemistry and elements that all have to work out, and I got lucky.
You got lucky, especially because there's a lot of people in the band. It's not like a 3-piece or even a 4-piece. There's a bunch of you guys. So
Yeah.
I always feel like that's got to be even more difficult in the context of how you just painted the picture, which is so true, because you're talking about personalities, schedules, same style. Does the drummer and the bass player have a chemistry as a rhythm section? Yada, yada.
Yeah.
Before we get into ISIS, though, because, what were your earliest memories of realizing that music in general meant something to you, even if it was like when you were in single digits, where you're like, I really like this. It's not just background noise. Like, you gravitated to it,
Yeah. When you say that, my first memory goes to my dad's record collection. He just had like this massive record collection, mostly vinyl, but also a lot of cassettes. And I used to just love to listen to those records and look at the artwork and look at the liner notes, and listen to the music. And it just being in a small town without much to do, like just having that massive record collection was like a lifeline for me, And then as I got older, I got into skating, like Thrasher magazine, and there was always music in there, and like there was a really cool college radio station that had some pretty good DJs that were pretty in tune with good music. And I had some friends that were a little bit older than me that liked like Touch and Go and AMREP stuff. So I got exposed to some really cool stuff, fortunately, like Melvin's, like
Right,
Dale,
right.
like Dale was a huge influence for me. Like hearing Dale play like on Houdini, man, was like
Oh my God.
blew my mind. Like I'd never heard drumming like that. It was like it was like orchestral and just big, and like just so different than the kick snare hat rock, ride 4/4 shit that I had heard for the most part up until then. And then just like Houdini just totally blew my mind, man. Like
I was just talking about that the other day. I think even last night with somebody, specifically that record, because I was confused by it. We could talk about this for forever, which I'll try not to derail too much. But like, I never heard anything like that before. Specifically, I mean, it starts out with drums. I never heard drums that sounded like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Enormous.
Yeah.
But and that's cool because it's like you said. I mean, obviously, you got introduced to AMRAP stuff early on, and Thrasher had some interesting music. And AMRAP stuff is very outside of the box. It's not like typical punk rock. It's not like you were like, oh, I got into Sex Pistols and Ramones. I mean, you're probably talking Jesus Lizard, I'm assuming, and stuff of that nature.
Yeah, like early Helmet and Hammerhead and Tar and yeah, like that label was just one of those labels that kind of like Ipecac, you know, like
Yeah,
you know, like everything they put out, you could at least go, yeah, this is cool, if or more likely go, wow, I really like this.
right. It's
Um,
out of the box.
yeah, like back then labels, I mean, you didn't get like all the hype you get on social media now, or like pre-release and little teasers, and you can work up to the
Yeah,
album. Like then it was like, ooh, AMREP has a new record coming out by this band I've never heard of. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like it, you know, like
that's a really good point. There was no, there's no teasers. There's not even commercials for a label like that.
yeah.
If anything, you're seeing a commercial for a new Skid Row record or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was
It's out
different.
records.
It was a different time, and it was like you didn't. I remember they had like I remember when listening stations were started popping up, and like you could maybe listen to it was mostly like pretty mainstream stuff, but you might be able to listen to something weird, you know,
Right.
uh, or like album artwork. I feel like was such a draw to buying an album. Like I remember buying Undertow purely because of the album artwork. I didn't know anything about Tool. I just bought that album because I was like, man,
Yeah.
that's cool artwork. I just, it was so dark and evil looking. I really wanted to hear it.
No, you're absolutely right, and specifically Tool, the aesthetic from day one has always been super creepy and
It was
strange.
creepy and just like, man, I want to know more about what this is.
Yeah, yeah, and the mystery specifically with bands like that, like there was no pictures of them on anything, so
Which
like
made you want to know even more, you know?
yeah, that's like a psychological thing too. Like the air of mystery makes you just want to know more about anything.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
like yeah, anytime that you don't really, at least for me, when like you just said, like not knowing who was in the band or what they look like, or like who are these people making this music. You didn't have that. It wasn't, you couldn't just go search it, you know. It wasn't like
Mhm.
it was
Yeah,
different.
there's no cardboard cutouts of Jesus Lizard, Backstreet Boys out records. It'd be pretty amazing.
Not
Now,
to sound old and bitter, but yeah.
no, of course, I feel the same way. Um, and then you're in a town called that's funny, and I mean you're in a town called Bath in Maine. You said, which at what point you talked about how you discovered underground music. I guess that's while you're still in Maine, right? Before you go to Boston. But then when and how do you start playing drums?
Yeah, my dad, in addition to having this amazing record collection, was a drummer, and he he in high school played in like a local band, and they had, you know, like some originals, but they mostly covers, and you know, just like a rock band, and it was a fun thing they did. And uh, maybe when I was in, I think when I was like in eighth grade, he and his buddies decided they were gonna, or maybe no, maybe seventh grade. He and his buddies decided they were gonna, you know, get the band back together and do it for fun, and like, so he went out and bought a drum kit,
Okay.
and suddenly there was a drum kit in my basement at my house. And at that time, like I was really into records by like Bleach and Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and
Nice.
and so I would like, again, I grew up in Maine, like my options were pretty limited.
I
So
mean, you just named two of the biggest bands in the '90s that I think most people, whether you're in an underground band or a mainstream band, probably were listening to at that time.
yeah, for sure, man. And like I just remember I remember going down in my basement and with my cassette player at the time, and just listening to Bleach or listening to Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and just playing along, trying to learn how to play drums.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that's where I got like such a good sense of time, was listening to Chad Smith, because he's such a he's such like a solid pocket
He is
drummer.
unbelievable. He's unbelievable. I
He's
think I listened to you talk about this on. Were you on what was the drum podcast with Joe Wong?
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, and I
yeah. So
remember
like,
being surprised. Yeah,
yeah, and like if I'm being honest with you, that's I think Chad Smith was like one of the my biggest influences. Like I, Red Hot Chili Peppers, whatever. Like not the most exciting or sexy band, but but thinking back, like I was lucky that I got to learn how to play drums listening to Chad because he's so solid, and then I could take that bass and move on to other things that I thought were really cool, like Helmet and like Nirvana and like Melvins and
hmm
the AMREP bands and
right. I mean, look, let's be honest. Like, we could talk about this forever, and I know I see Mario and Sarah watching this. We listen to old Chili Peppers in the van, and I fucking love Mother's Milk
oh
and
yeah,
Blood
it's
Sugar
awesome.
Sex Magic. I mean, the band, there are bands, and we don't have to talk about this for too long, but there are bands who were fucking sick at one point. They were like the best band in the world, like U2 or the Chili Peppers, and then just shit happens. Who knows what it's like being that famous? But like they just went on a little too long, and maybe
Yeah, yeah, it gets
didn't
watered
too well.
down or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, Mother's Milk, man. Um, so I want to ask you selfishly as a drummer,
Yeah.
like you have a style to me that is very John Bonham, very 70s, very vintage sounding. Um, and I don't, you met your father played drums, you were saying. So I don't know
Yeah.
if that came from him, but I'm curious and also wondering if I'm accurate here that, with the Bonham Phil Collins thing. Um, and just to sort of finish that question, you do this thing that's very signature. I'm sure you've heard this from people before, where you do a syncopated thing with your with the bass drum and snare drum with the hi-hats. You do it a lot. Where, talk about your influences and style, and maybe if you could talk about where that came from.
Yeah. Bonham for sure, man. Like I feel like that is such a generic answer for a drummer to say like John Bonham's my favorite drummer. But I mean, he was such a huge influence for me, and not just as his playing, but his sound and all around. Like he had like a such a good pocket and just like a swagger to his drums that were so. I hate that word swagger, but I don't know how else to describe it. Like he he was so fun to listen to, and um yeah, my dad was a huge Zeppelin fan, so I got to hear all those records from an early age. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I kind of always had that sort of ingrained in me just from hearing those records early on. And then when we moved to Los Angeles, this was pretty far into my music career with ISIS. I took some lessons with this Indian, this tabla drummer named Alok, and he told me something that like kind of changed everything for me. He said that kick drum should be the heart of your play of like your the rhythm or of your music, and the snare and the hi-hat and the toms, that should be more of like your fun and your technique, right? So that when he said that to me, it just really resonated with me, and I think that just further solidified that like my approach to drumming, which I never really thought about too much, but I guess I kind of feel like the kick drum is sort of like the heartbeat and where the emotion comes from and where the power comes from, and then what you do with your hands is just sort of your more flashy or more exciting stuff. So I guess for me that's the best way I can describe it. Like I just tried to really feel the music, and yeah, I mean I don't know. I think it's yeah, just being, like I said, exposed to really good music when I was a kid, and good drummers, and being lucky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Were you into any prog rock at all?
Yeah, later in my career, when I met Danny Carey, I got way into prog. See,
So this is later because I'm thinking like on those old ISIS records, it's just a sound specifically, and you could maybe settle this as some, maybe you'll find this flattering. I've had this discussion for years about you, even before I ended up in my band and knowing you. Me and my friends could never tell if you were playing with your snares on or if the snares were off. How'd you get that snare sound?
I turned them on and off throughout the set or the song, or just depends. Some songs are completely off, some are on, some are off and on.
So I'm not crazy.
No, not at all. But when they're on, I used to do weird shit too, like use guitar strings instead of snares, just to like try to make the snare sound different. Like I would just remove the strainer and just, how like you screw down the two screws to hold the strings, right, or the the whatever you call it. I would just take old guitar strings that the guys were done with, and I was like, I wonder what like 3 guitar strings would sound like, as my strainer, or like just do weird shit like that. And so the snare drum sound on Oceanic that not everybody, but some people like, it's a 5.5 by 14 hammered bronze snare. And then do you remember those old Remo drum heads, the Flam, the yellow Kevlar head?
I know what you're talking about for sure. Yeah.
It was one of those. And I think for the most part on Oceanic, the snares were off. And another like really big contributor to that snare sound is the room that we recorded in. It was a studio called Fort Apache. It's not around anymore. It was in Boston. And if you look it up, some really cool records were made there. And that room was just so big, and there was a stage in the room. So it was almost like playing in a club. And Matt Bayless just got a really killer drum sound in there. And
it's unbelievable. Cymbals, everything. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
We got a couple things from the audience that I'll get to here. So my friend Corey's watching. I guess you're right. The snares are off. That's what I thought. You got a guy here. I'm just reading some comments here that at Jake Argue said he enjoyed going to drum shops, asking how to replicate the ISIS snare sound and watching them get super confused. I've definitely talked about this in the van with Mario too. Alice Bowie 3 wants to know if you use 2 floor toms.
I do. I use a 14 and a 16.
Okay. Yeah, interesting sizes too, because like this goes, I mean, you're an engineer, which we'll get to in a little bit. And I talk about this with Mario sometimes, like both of you guys can get these cool, deeper sounds from drums that I would assume are way bigger. Just now when you mentioned the 5.5 by 14, and by the way, to the non-drummers out there, I'm sorry if this is boring, but there are 2 drummers on screen, so you're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
I know it's not a drum show, but I was surprised that you have a 14-inch floor tom and a 5 by 14 snare. It sounds, typically, like in the Dale way, where it's like all those drums on Houdini were so big. I was talking about it.
Yeah.
Them, read about it. And just real quick to Larry Herwig, don't worry if you're late. After this is over, this will be archived on the St. Vitus IGTV and on YouTube within the week or so. And somebody had a really funny comment, Blood Sugar 6 Harris. I thought that was really funny. So thanks for that.
Who said that, Larry?
No, I don't know who it was. I missed it. It was a while ago, but I kept it in the back of my mind while you're talking because I felt that was worth mentioning.
That's amazing.
Okay. I have a question from a member of the audience I'll get to in a little bit because we haven't even talked about how you ended up meeting the guys in ISIS and all that. So let's talk about how you guys met. How did you guys all find each other?
Well, let's see. 4 out of the 5 of us worked at the same place. It was a There was a chain called Newbury Comics, and if you've been to Boston or New England, you may have seen one of those. So
I
yeah, the
know that
band
place
formed.
very well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the band formed in Boston, and when I moved to Boston in '96, I got a job right away at the Newbury Comics warehouse because at the time it was known as like a place where you could go get a job if you were a musician and they would let you tour. So if you could get a job there, it was sort of company policy to be like supportive of musicians and let them take time off to go tour, which was pretty fucking cool. Like, you know, I didn't know anywhere else where I could get a job and say, hey, I'm going to take off for a month. And they would be like, okay, we'll see you when you get back. They were awesome, man. They were so supportive. And they tightened up on that later as, you know, the years went on. But in the late 90s, yeah, they were like the place to work if you were a musician because they paid well, they paid you benefits, you worked in music, and they
Oh,
let you
really?
tour. Yeah,
They
and
paid your benefits too.
yeah, like you. I remember being I remember being in hard times, and you could go to them and say, "Hey, I'm having trouble paying my rent," or like, "Hey, I have this bill," or whatever, and they would give you a loan, and
Wow,
you could.
that's fucking wild.
It was amazing, and you could set it up so that you could pay off a little bit each week from your paycheck to pay off this loan. Like these guys were awesome, man, and
They're still around too.
they're still around. Such a cool company, and yeah, like super supportive, and that's where I met Jeff, Cliff, and Mike, and I met Aaron because he would come by the warehouse to drop. We all worked in the warehouse that
Hmm.
distributed to all the stores, and Aaron would come by and drop off records for Hydra Head for distro to, you know, sell to the company.
Sure.
So and Jeff lived with Aaron, so Aaron and Jeff lived together, and Jeff, Cliff, Mike, and I all worked at the warehouse. So Aaron and Jeff came to me initially and said, "Hey, we want to start a band. We're looking for a drummer. Do you want to come play with us?" And we jammed, and it worked out really well. And then we had another keyboard player at the time, and he lasted about a year. His name was Chris. And like, you know, committing to doing a band is a lot of commitment, you know, and
Hmm.
it didn't align for him at the time, and so we found another temp keyboard player, and then eventually we arrived to Cliff, and then
Cliff's awesome.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like so thankful that like the lineup that we arrived at was perfect, you know, and yeah, Mike was in a band called Cast Iron Hike, which was like
I love Cast Iron High.
you might know them, yeah,
Yeah,
they were
let's get a
on
reunion
yeah,
here.
they were on Victory, right?
Yeah, I
And
didn't know that somebody in your band was in Cast Iron Hike. That's crazy.
yeah, so Mike was in Cast Iron Hike, and then when Cast Iron Hike broke up, we were looking for another guitar player because we started off just one guitarist, Aaron, and then we were like, "Hey, Mike, why don't you come jam with us?" You know, and so Mike joined us, and you know, that's when we did Celestial, and then from there, that was it, man. That was a lineup.
Such a, you know, what's cool about certain bands is like the bands where you can't replace anybody, and if you did, it would just be weird. Like that lineup was
Yeah,
that way, you know, which is
yeah.
again crazy because
Well, that's why when we broke up because it was like, if so and so doesn't want to do it anymore, we can't really. This isn't a band where it's like we could just replace. You know,
right, yeah,
this is us. You know, like we can't do this without everyone.
absolutely. I mean, the rhythm section, you know, let alone the everything. I mean, you know, I can't really isolate it, but like just listening, revisiting it today, haven't heard it in a while, but like the bass playing and the drumming, it's all very signature. It was
Yeah,
he
Jeff.
was playing with his fingers, right?
Mostly, I think he played with the pick a little bit, but Jeff like just has that sound where you go, oh, that's Jeff. You know,
Yeah.
he's one of my favorite bass players and one of my favorite people. And uh, I would play with that dude anytime, like uh, we just gelled, like
Yeah.
we, it was great.
The interesting thing about and we'll talk about the creative process and like the style a little bit, but something interesting about that band is the for that style of music, whatever you want to call it, like a Neurosis kind of vibe, it's very smooth. Everything's very smooth, and like and the rhythm section is smooth. I feel like if you took away all the music and it was just the bass and drums, it would still be appealing to listen to. It's really, really interesting stuff. And almost you guys weren't a prog band, but like I brought that up because in a way you could say the same thing about like any prog band, like Yes or Genesis or something like that,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
but
mean, like all the yeah, I think like all the separate elements combined made something special, like everybody had their own space within the band, their own like sound, which all came together and made something interesting,
yeah,
So, um, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like, and that's another thing, like, another like lucky thing is that, we our playing and our sounds all kind of mixed together, made something special.
right. Absolutely, it certainly did. Those records, people I know to this day are still listening to those records. I
I
really side
appreciate it.
note, yeah. It's timeless. It doesn't sound dated at all. And but that's a cool thing about certain genres. I don't know what we can call it, but like again, I am sure the Neurosis comparison can get old. But like it's like you can listen to those records for the next 50 years. It doesn't matter when it is. It's
Yeah, true. Yeah.
but I saw ISIS at two interesting times. On a side note, I mentioned during the intro, I saw you guys in the very early part of your band career because I could tell because it was a hardcore show, and I'm sure that was before you were playing with Melvins and doing stuff like that. But I saw you at like a fucking like a Knights of Columbus style
Oh
place
yeah.
in
Yeah.
Long Island, where I'm from. I don't remember who played. I think it was probably like Hydra Head bands. Uh,
Probably.
yeah,
What year was it?
I'm gonna say that it had to have been '97 or
Yeah,
'98.
so maybe like Cattle Press and like maybe Cave In or maybe
Cave In. Did you play with Cave In and Piebald?
Cave In and Piebald?
Yeah,
Yeah, many times.
yeah, probably was that. That's actually how I heard about Newberry Comics was from a Piebald song, because they had all the goofy lyrics all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny. But
Yeah, Cave In was like our sister band for a while. Like we would play with Cave In all the time. Like, yeah, I'm sure it was with Cave In, probably.
yeah, actually, somebody commenting right now mentioned Dillinger. It might have been with Dillinger too. Um,
Yeah, we did well that would have been yeah, 97 or 98. We did our first US tour with Dillinger and Candiria.
right. Oh man, those are all those guys are good friends of mine. I can't say enough good things about John and Candiria or Ben, Greg. That's awesome. And so getting back on track here, when you guys got together and were trying to figure out what the sound was going to be, did it just come out that way, or was there a discussion of like reference points, like I like this band, I like this, like was it ever discussed?
Had When we started the band, there were definite influences, that like I remember when Jeff and I talked about when Jeff approached me about joining the band, he was like, "Hey, we want to start a band that sounds like Neurosis and sounds like Godflesh."
Yeah,
And I mean we wore those influences on our sleeve, and I mean anyone who starts a band, that's kind of how you start, right? Like you have to have a vision and a sound, and you drop some names, and that's kind of that's who you um that's who you aspire to sound like at first, right? And then you
yeah.
develop your own sound. So um so yeah, like very much so, like the early days were very much sort of emulating our influences, and then And then luckily we were able to find our own sound and dabble into some stuff that kind of morphed into something we could call our own, you know?
Absolutely. And the creative process, I'm curious, like what was the typical creative process like? Because it seems like music that was created from jamming. Personally, I mean, I don't know if like if I'm wrong and someone actually came with material, but you know, maybe you could elaborate.
Occasionally, yeah, like occasionally Aaron or Jeff or Mike or Cliff or even me, I would come with some ideas, but yeah, like sometimes somebody would have an idea and just be like, "Hey, I have this riff," and like everyone had like a very distinct like style, right? Like Aaron's riffs were always really fucking weird, and he would never play them the same twice. Like he'd be like, "I have this riff," and he would play it, and we would jam on it for a few minutes, and then and this was before you could like record it and have it the next day to reference. This
Right,
was
right.
like
You have to remember it.
you had to use your brain. so so
What a
we would jam,
concept.
yeah, and then we would jam, and then like we would take a break and like go get a drink or some food or uh, uh, something, and then come back and be like, okay, let's play that riff some more, and he would play it totally different, and I would have to be like, dude, you're not playing the riff the
Oh
same.
my
You're
God,
playing,
it's so
and
funny.
I was so like regimented in my playing that I knew like, hey man, that's not you're playing that twice instead of three times, or like, so he would be like, oh damn it. So uh, that was always fun, and then yeah, like everybody had their thing, like everybody had their style. So um, yeah, it was really fun, man. I miss doing writing those songs, and then like a lot of like you said, like a lot of times it was just jamming. Like sometimes
Was
people
it
didn't.
predominantly jamming, or like jamming in the sense of like maybe somebody came in with one part, but then you kind of expanded off of it? In other words.
Yeah, for sure. No one ever. I don't think anyone ever fully had a song developed. It was always like, I have this riff. What do you think? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. Let's jam on that and then see what happens. Oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? Um, and then a lot of times too, it would just purely be like, I don't know. I don't have any ideas.
Like awkward band practice, like staring at
Ye-
each other.
oh
Like, wait,
man,
do you
those
have anything?
we had so many of those, dude.
You
Uh,
just gave me a bunch of PTSD from like the days of like, well, that, but also like, I haven't thought about it in so long because we're so used to recording stuff on our phones now. But like the days of like being with a buddy and like something sick would come out of it, and then you'd show up the next day and be like, dude, do you not remember that? It's like, no,
oh yeah,
you know. It's like the
yeah. I mean,
worst.
you sometimes you would write something awesome, and if you didn't remember, it was gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Because unless you invested in like a really expensive multi-track recording system, you didn't have the technology then, right? So I mean,
Right.
you could do like a 4-track, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you didn't have to spend a ton of money, but at the time, like yeah, it was for the most part you had to remember.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny, man. And it's like it sounds all. If you do record it, it's all fucking like shitty and distorted. And, like the bass player can't figure out what he did.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
drum beat, and then the guitars come in, and it's just blown out distortion. You can't tell what it is.
yeah, it's not like ISIS. Like I can't imagine you guys were bands with like music stands and like pencils and paper. Like I think we did this note over here. um,
No.
but yeah, like so those records again, Celestial, Oceanic, and Panopticon, just unbelievable. So while we're talking about recording, did you guys record live? Double question. Curious if you played to a click. And again, to everybody watching, I'm sorry if this is dorky shit, but it's interesting.
Yeah, so up until our last record, Wavering Radiant, I never played to a click. Um, and on Wavering Radiant, Joe Barisi, the producer, would we established some tempos that felt really good before going into the studio. And so I really I was like, man, Joe, I don't want to play to a click because I don't it bugged me out so much. I couldn't play. Having that click in my ear, it screwed me up so much, man. And I was like, hey, so can you start me off with the click, and then about 2 bars in, can you just fade it out to give me a reference? So
Yeah.
we did it that way. But the records previous to that, I never played to a click. It was just we rehearsed those tracks so much that whatever the tempo was pretty much was the tempo from when the song was established, right? So
Yeah.
and then we did them live. It was usually me at first. Like on Oceanic, it was just me and Aaron. I think on Panopticon, it was me, Jeff, and Aaron. And then on In the Absence of Truth and Wavering Radiant, it was all of us together.
Got it.
Just for tracking the drums. But then after the drums, everyone would go back and read and do their parts. So the drums, I always had at least one person. The records, every record up until In the Absence of Truth was done to tape, and I was always the first guy to go. So it was like, okay, got to nail this 10-minute song in a take, So
yeah,
when people tell me like, hey, I love you're playing on Oceanic, or I love you're playing on Panopticon, it's really flattering to me, because it's like I remember doing those records and just being so nervous.
right, because the pressure's on it when you're doing a tape. And again, back then, it's not like there was any other option anyway. But
Right, like
yeah,
you can comp tape tracks, but like we didn't have money for multiple reels of tape and doing all that shit. So it was like, I got to nail this track in a take, right? So like,
yeah,
I can't like. It was this weird thing where it was like I feel really confident about playing these songs, but also I feel like I can't take too many risks because I can't afford to.
Of course, yeah. People talk, not to age you, I'm probably not that far behind you, but people talk about that on the show sometimes, about those days versus now. Speaking of like cranky old men, it's like and women, it's just like kind of like the whole idea of like the guy cutting the tape and just whatever. So we're at that home stretch, and I feel bad because it actually went by way quicker than I thought. So I might rush through a couple things.
Well, that's good. Yeah, do your thing.
Yeah. And thank you to Kyle, whoever you are, for saying more dorky shit, please. I'm glad that it's that we're enjoying it. Looks like everyone's enjoying themselves. Shout out to Monica from Speakeasy. Hello.
Hey Monica.
Yeah. Okay.
That's our publicist. She's an old friend.
That's right. Yeah, she's great. I have her husband, who I'm a huge fan of, on the show soon.
Awesome.
Yeah, big fan of Sansfield.
Yeah.
I got a question that somebody. Okay, so I'll ask this question from somebody.
Hey, I see Chino. I see Chino on here.
Oh, is that right? What's up, Chino? How you doing, man? That's actually perfect timing, because at James Cop 12 wants to know if there are any Palms music in the future.
I'll let Chino answer that one.
Chino, if you want to answer that question in the comments, go for it.
No, I hope so. We have some stuff tracked, and everybody's busy. Everyone's got families and jobs, and it's hard to, and especially right now, it's not like we're going to be able to finish that stuff anytime soon. So maybe it'll be a nice treat one day for a little follow up to the self-titled.
Yeah. Well, while we have the whole Ipecac crew in here, because I'm assuming that's Mark, everybody's watching.
Awesome.
When did Ipecac come into the picture? Because you were on Hydra Head prior to that.
On Oceanic was the first record we did with Ipecac. We had done we did Celestial with a label called Escape Artist, and they were a small label, and we were growing, and the relationship was awesome, but we just wanted to kick it up a notch and get a little more exposure, and I think they knew that, I think they knew that we were kind of growing beyond their label, and I think it was James Plotkin who passed on some demos to Patton, and Patton heard them to Mike, and he liked them a lot, and got in touch. And I mean, I remember just being like, seriously, Mike
Yeah.
Patton, Mike Patton wants to put our records out. Okay.
So wild.
Yeah, it was all. It was like, and we were talking to Relapse at the time, and we actually like we were this close to signing to Relapse, and Ipecac came in the ninth hour, and just like we were like, man, this seems like a much better fit for us, and I'm so thankful that that worked out because I can't imagine another label for us. Like they're, as you know, like so artist friendly,
Yeah.
such great people, such a family vibe, such great amazing support.
I go
Greg,
way back with Mark Shapiro before Ipecac, so and he's
awesome.
the best. I love Mark. It's just
They're all just like they feel like family, like just and what better relationship to have when you're releasing your art or your music, right? So
yeah. Even the bands too, like Dalek. Will from Dalek was on the show. Another good friend here in New York. Just like you said,
yeah,
people, and we have so many of the artists on the show, like yourself
that's awesome.
and Buzz and Dale. So, and while I have my bandmates commenting here, obviously we have you to thank for getting us on the label and or introducing us and doing all that stuff. So,
I just passed on the music. You guys did the work.
well, I have 9 minutes left. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible, but the ISIS reunited for the Caleb Schofield Memorial. Can you talk about, maybe I'm going to ask you a 3-part question so we could just kind of squeeze it in. But number one, talk about what it was like getting back together with the band. Number two, what the shows were like, and then maybe share a special memory about Caleb.
Yeah, getting back together felt surprisingly like normal. Like it felt very it felt like no time had passed, even though it had been it had been 8 years. We rehearsed 3 times before the show, and I hadn't really been playing much drums before that, and those songs are just so ingrained in me, and playing with those guys feels like such an extension of myself at this point. I think it just felt super natural and was great, and despite it being a terrible circumstance. And then what was I'm sorry, the second part was
Playing live. Well, you kind of
oh
talked about it already. Well, that it was that it felt normal getting back together with the guys, and that the show was awesome, which I've seen online. I wasn't there. I
right.
had a lot of friends and my bandmates were there. I heard it was a magical thing. But and can you share maybe like some kind of special memory? It doesn't have to be a specific thing, but anything about Caleb for Caleb, of course, from Old Man Gloom and Cave In and many other bands who tragically passed away. For anyone watching that may not know who I'm referencing, but
Yeah, I'm just laughing thinking of all the fun we had, man. That guy was such a great dude. I think anybody that knew Caleb would have nothing but good things to say about him. He was just one of those people that you don't find many of. Like you could trust him with your life. You could rely on him. You could see him you could not see him for like 5 years, and then you'd see him and it would be like no time had gone by, like
yeah.
He felt like a brother to me, and he was such a force on stage. It was so fun to watch that guy play, and his voice, man, like just like so intense. But then off stage, he was just like the most mellow, nice dude, and he actually did a tour with us as our tour manager, and I think that was in like 2000-ish, somewhere around there. And we just had a blast, man. And he was at the time he was completely sober, so he like really got a kick out of all of us idiots, just like
entertained.
yeah, like. And so like one story, I'll tell it really quickly. I think it was in Saint I don't remember what, St. Louis, I think it was.
Okay.
And we played a small show there. And after the show, we were loading out, and Cliff took it to another level that night and had. I hope Cliff doesn't mind me telling the story, but I'm going to tell it. Cliff indulged a little too deeply that night, and he crossed into the dark side, and we were loading out. We were loading out, and Cliff was just running back and forth to the van and to the stage, just like, it's time to load, just screaming and yelling. You know how you are, like when you hit that level of fucked up where you're just like, everyone has their thing, right? But for some people it's like really fun and entertaining, and that was Cliff. And he like,
Yeah.
he hit that threshold, and he was just running around screaming and yelling and running back and forth, and then like he totally disappeared. And we were like, where the fuck is Cliff, man? So we walked out to the parking lot, and Cliff's just like got two hands on his knees, just like bent over, vomiting, right?
I can't picture this, by the way,
and
because of the nature of how I know him, you know?
Oh, dude, he used to be wild. But there was like a small pond of vomit. Like, I can't even tell you how much liquid there was. And we came out and we were like, oh man, Cliff's vomiting.
Oh man.
And Caleb was like, came out. I saw Caleb come out, and Caleb came out and he looked and he was like, what is all that? Like pointing to all the liquid, you know? And Cliff just stopped vomiting and looked at him. He goes, it's beer, Caleb. And then went back to throwing up. And like for the rest of the tour, that was like one of the things that was like one of the funny taglines of the tour. And and even to this day, just saying, it's beer, Caleb. Like, that's a memory that just sticks out to me as just, you know, one of those fun times.
That's fucking great, man. So we have 4 minutes left, and I do want to like talk about what you're up to, so everyone knows. But real quick, you produce, you record. You talked about it a little earlier. You played on Seismic by Spotlights on most of the record you recorded. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and then transition and tell us what you're doing right now with your work, and if there's anything that you want to announce or talk about, even if it's not related to that. I don't know if ISIS is doing anything, but kind of take us out in the 3 minutes and let us know what's happening. But I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, doing that Spotlights was so much fun. You know, Mario and Sarah, all like family, like just, we had so much fun, and
they're all right. I love you guys.
I was so excited to do that record, and they'd sent me some demos, and I thought they were awesome. And yeah, we just, you know, they flew out, and we got in the studio, we made the record. They were like, you know, we have some songs that if you want to play on them, that would be awesome. And it was the first time I'd ever just like jumped in the seat and just like, without any preconceived I didn't have any ideas. I just kind of jumped behind the kid and was like, all right, let's just hit record, because Mario's an engineer, an awesome engineer. And I was like, just hit record and let's just see what happens, you know? And so that was that. And I've never done that. And it was so fun, man. I've never done a record where I wasn't just like so meticulously prepared. Like, that was fun to just like on the spot write some stuff.
Hey, Aaron, you can't see this, but I have a timer where Instagram's kicking us off in about 15 seconds. But so if we don't say goodbye, thank you for doing this. But can you just talk up until we get kicked off here about what you're doing?
Yeah, of course. And then right now I'm just composing for all different forms of media, trailers. You can go on my website if you want to check out some of the trailers I've been involved in. My latest was Lovecraft Country, the new HBO series. Yeah, I'm just luckily making a living in music somehow, some way, still doing it. So I'm thankful for everyone that listens to my music, and I'm thankful that I can still do music for a living, and I'm thankful to you for having me on.
Absolutely, man. And as somebody that has heard some of the stuff that you've done in more recent time, it's fucking really cool and atmospheric, and just sort of you know, it's just out there, man. It's cool stuff, and everybody can obviously follow you on and check out your website. to see what you're up to, and if you're working on anything that you need music for, hit up Aaron, man.
And check out Chris's playing because he's a badass drummer, and he even plays my shit, which is really fun to see.
All right, man. We're gonna get kicked off in about 5 seconds. Thank you so much.
Bye, Chris.
You're
Bye,
awesome.
everyone. Thank you so much. That was fun.
Stay safe. Stay safe.